I liked what you said about, positive thinking. That phrase, I think, is just so overused. It doesn't explain it properly. Positive thinking is almost like delusional. It's more about rational, the disarming. I think I do that, where if I have an anxious thought, I think like, why am I anxious about this? Where is that coming from? Is it a childhood trauma? Is it something unconscious or conscious that is happening? Is it something else that's unrelated that I'm just like sleep? We were talking about sleep earlier today. Sometimes it's as simple as just sleeping, get a good night's sleep, and then the next day is a new day. And it doesn't fucking matter anymore. It's like, okay, that was just late night anxiety. I tend to get it more in the night than in the day. So I've learned to teach myself, like, it's 10 p.m. You're worrying about something. Just go to bed.
Yeah.
And then the next day, oftentimes, it's not a big deal.
Hey there, go-getters. I'm Mike Ivashu, host of Busy Done Better, the podcast designed to help you embrace and enjoy your busy work life. A programmer since the age of 12, my journey has taken me from an employee to business owner and founder of Bookedin online scheduling. But I'm not here to brag about my success or sell you my 10-step plan. The truth is, on many days, I still struggle to keep it all together. Wearing too many hats, having to leave when I don't feel like a leader, solving problems I know little about, struggling to be present with family when all I can do is think about work. Whether you're running a $10 million company, a small business, or working a demanding job, you're likely familiar with these challenges. On this podcast, we examine the dark side of business life, significance of mental health, dynamics of remote work, and the ever-changing meaning of work-life balance, and hopefully make your busy and hectic day a little more interesting and enjoyable. In today's episode, I'm talking with Leanne Schmidt, Product Marketing Specialist at Bookedin. Leanne's resilience and positive attitude has been key to Bookedin's success for many years. From lemonade stand to tech startup, Leanne takes us down an entrepreneurial journey that includes waiting tables, copywriting, and a secret handshake. Leanne describes how reflection and perspective helped her survive early startup life, and why assuming positive intent is key to dealing with difficult people, like her overbearing boss. Ahem, that's me. All this, plus the benefits of being judgmental, dealing with a panic attack, the healing power of gratitude, and the importance of knowing your chronotype. So grab your favorite cup of coffee and settle in. This is a conversation you don't want to miss.
Hey, Leanne.
Hey.
Oh, we've been working so long together. It's there's no need for formalities.
No, not even close.
Is that Tucker beside you there?
Yep, Tucker's here. He's trying to mooch food or see what kind of snacks he can get out of me.
Oh, Tuckster.
Here he is. It could be because I'm set up today beside his dish.
Oh.
And that's where the food goes.
Yeah.
And the drywall, you'll have to pardon the renovations continue, but
yeah, I was wondering, that looks like a modern, they have houses now that literally look like the outside is just bare stucco, bare drywall. There's a house on our street that has, and I always wonder, like, what? They're like panels, and they kind of look like drywall panels almost, but they're not.
And it's like the finished
modern design. Yeah.
Oh, weird. No, this is just drywall. Gotta fill it. Apparently the mudding and the filling is like an art. Don't try at home.
Yeah.
So yeah, chaos, but it's good. It's fun. Good to work on things tangibly with your hands and like see a project come to life.
So you and I have been working together now for how many years has it been?
I think it's almost 10.
10?
Yeah, I was thinking
I was actually going to say
day.
5 or 7. Oh my God.
Oh, Mike, one of your employees found me at a networking event, and I gave them my card because you were trying to hire like a copywriter, and that was 2014.
Oh
So
my God. That is way too long. How the hell have you survived working with me for that long?
likewise.
Yeah.
We're somehow still alive and still
We've
together.
we've been through a lot of ups and downs together, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. Lots of highs and lows.
Yeah.
I think of us as like the mom and dad of Bookedin. Where
Yeah.
we're like we haven't got divorced yet.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
kids are still hanging on.
Yeah.
They're doing okay.
Yeah. It's come close a few times, but we keep hanging on.
Somehow we're
Yeah, so we hired you as a copywriter. And I remember that. I remember you walking in like first time and meeting you. And how I always wondered and I'm not sure, maybe we talked about this in the past, but what made you want to become a copywriter?
mostly it was I studied to be a journalist, and then all of those skills they teach you in college to write stories and go out there and get on to a newspaper. This is 2008 or 9 when I graduated. It was in the time of newspapers. People actually bought physical ones. They didn't even have a website, I don't think. I've always kind of had my own little side businesses as a kid, and so I had these new skills from college, these entrepreneurial vibes, if that's a word for it. And then just the market was terrible. Industries to get on as an intern was, you don't get paid for a year, and then your salary is like 20 grand. So I was that doesn't sound great. I actually just really love computers and gaming and being a nerd, and we've always had a computer at home, so I took that and somehow merged it into like web design. But at the time, content wasn't a thing. So it was a very slow and weird process of taking what I like to do and just like mashing it all together into a ball of the internet, writing, working with people, being my own boss. Yeah.
What do you like about writing?
Writing, it's funny, I don't even write too much anymore. I'm like trying to remember the last thing I wrote. For myself personally, I write, but not like publishing.
Mm-hmm.
I like the way that you can just get your thoughts out and express yourself. And yeah, it's more of a personal thing for me, I think. And that's likely why I didn't delve into writing a book or writing some kind of blog. I just never got there for me. I've always been a great writer, but I like to just write for other people and make money.
That's
a client work gets me going. Oh, these clients have such a cool story. I'll write up their website for them.
right.
And that's interesting to me.
Yeah. But you said that you don't write as much anymore because we've required you to do like 50 different things over the last 10 years. Many of which, a lot of which required your writing skills, and that's still foundationally. Yeah, I mean, in this day and age, it's critical to have people that can write in your organization because it's an internet world and it's all about content, right? And if you run a business, you have to produce content in some form, because that's how people find you, right? That's how people learn about you. So
yeah,
you mentioned
it's a handy skill. I don't know if it'll ever go away, where right now the most interesting content people are always on TikTok and consuming videos and things like that. And I think that's great. And there's always still that aspect of what are you going to talk about? You're actually kind of scripting out and planning out your content. If you're a creator who's serious, who has partnerships and things like that, you have like a calendar and you fill it with ideas. That's writing, but the medium is changed where video is more important and interesting now.
Yeah, I find like they're both versions of content, and I certainly don't have a lot of experience with video. It seems to me that approaching the production of video content, there's a lot more acting in it. So the skill set, I think, it involves the ability to act. You have to have that. So in the past, let's say you really needed writers, and now you need actors, in your company, really, because that's, it's, yes, you need to know your talking points, what to talk about, but really you're acting, right? When you're producing a video, you're acting. So that's a skill set that's emerging, like acting skills are extremely important now to business. And written skills, same thing, right? Writing, I think, is always going to be important. I don't see that going away, but there's a different approach to writing, right?
Exactly.
You're not an actor. You get to sit and sort out your thoughts. You put down a draft and you revise that draft. There's a totally different process to producing written content versus video content. Not to say there's a lot of preparation and work in both, but the skill sets are quite different. Yeah. You mentioned that you write in your writing, you don't write much anymore, and it's kind of more of a personal thing. And I think you enjoy other aspects of your job and not just having to write. I mean, I know in our work life, you've never really had an interest in writing long form blog posts.
That's true.
And there were times when I thought that was kind of odd. Like, well, how does a writer not want to write long form, right? But different types of writing they're not all the same. And I know I remember having a musician friend who was, I think, very talented musician. And and I always wondered, and he had a journalism degree and he went into journalism, but he did record an album for, at one point by himself, but he'd work when he was young. He'd worked in lounges, just making money while he was traveling, like playing piano.
Oh, nice.
And I asked him one time, I said, well, why? Because he was from New Zealand. He was telling me he was pursuing a journalism degree. And I always wonder, like, you're so talented musically, why wouldn't you pursue that? And he said, it's something that I enjoy doing personally. And I feel like if I did it for money, it became my main source of income, I would lose the joy. And because then you have to sort of play and produce things that the market wants to hear and so on and so forth. And I just didn't want to do that. I didn't want to take it into that area. So is that sort of kind of how you feel about writing?
Yes and no. I would say I relate to that story a lot because there's like the two forms of writing for yourself and writing for someone else for money, right?
The writing for myself part, I put it totally separate. And it's not even a kind of thing I would publish. I think I'm just a really private person. The things I write every day. It's not like I don't write anymore, but I just don't show anymore. So that's my personal
part of who I am. And then copywriting is the reason why I got into that is because it's like helping people, where a copywriter writes like taglines, a homepage, a business script for a pitch, things like that. I'm entirely removed. So I get to pretend to be that brand. And, one of the first websites that I did was at a company called Tactica in Winnipeg. It was like agricultural wheat, some kind of service. This is fun.
Yeah.
It's like 15 years ago. I forget what they were called, but the site was really interesting to me because you get to learn about the industry, speak with the client, figure out what makes them different. And it's almost like interviewing for a newspaper. In my internship days, you would interview someone, get to know their story, write it down, and tell it to the world. And that's cool. I'm completely removed. The journalist, you're trained to be unbiased, impartial, unless you're an editorialist, which is you're putting your opinion in. I like telling other people's stories. So when it comes to copywriting it's almost like a feature story, but it's a client who's hiring you and paying you way more than a newspaper that would. For me, it
Right.
was like I needed money to pay my student loans. So I thought, okay, newspapers, working in websites, I think one's paying triple, so I'll just go that way. I love websites. It's awesome. So telling stories over here, it's the same as over there.
Yeah, it's funny how money is, as
Yeah.
much as we can pretend that, oh, it's not all about the money. I mean, money's important, right?
Yeah.
So you mentioned you're an entrepreneur, your time with Bookedin, you've basically been an entrepreneur the entire time because you've been right there with me trying to figure out how to run this business. Made me realize that entrepreneurs exist inside companies just as much as they do running companies.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I think you're definitely one of those,
It's kind of like in your blood. You just can't get rid of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I bet you were like that too at your old jobs, because you've kind of had that same knack where you worked at jobs in the past. Did it feel the same way for you when you worked as like an employee in your old life?
Yeah, I was, unfortunately for my employers, never a great employee. Like I always did the job really well, and I took pride in doing it. I just could care less about the authority, the structure.
Oh, okay.
So unfortunately I wasn't the most a good subordinate, let's say.
Yeah.
And that was kind of my wake up call. When I worked a I always, as soon as I felt I could do something better, I just wanted to do it better, and I didn't want to just sit and do my job. So that's kind of what it kind of, the freedom was really what this journey for me is all about. The last job I had, which was 2002, I basically left because they tried to give me a raise, a very good one, 15% raise or something like that, after being there for a year. And I knew I was really good at my job. And I said, well, that's not enough. I need a lot more. And then it was just this massive process to try to get what I felt I was worth. And I had a very solid argument. But, I understand now the game they were playing because I'm on the other side. So I understand why their approach was the way they approached it. But for me, it just didn't work. And I remember sitting with the CEO, and he was stating his case. Well, we can't give you this, but how about this? And in my head, I just right there made a decision. I'm out of here. Like, I'm gone.
Yeah.
I didn't say it. I just ended up agreeing, like, sure, sounds good. And I remember him pausing, like, well, are you sure? Because he just saw a total change.
Yeah, he knew.
In attitude with me. I was like, sure, that sounds good. Yeah, I'll take that. And in my head, I was going, I'm out of here. And it wasn't because I didn't like him or the company or anything. It was a great company. But it just hit me that for me, look, like, oh my God, look at the amount of effort I had to put in. Yeah, I didn't like the shackles, and it was, for me, I just knew that was the moment I knew I had to go and just do my own thing. So
unshackled.
Yeah. So, having the freedom to sort of follow and do it. Now, what I didn't know at the time is that comes with a lot of other work that you don't see. So you do have shackles. They're just different shackles. That's all. So it's kind of the shackles, you choose, right, that you're willing to wear.
That's so
the ones
true.
You're not willing to wear.
It's so true. I went through the same thing as an employee at my old job, and then I'm going freelance and things are going to be amazing. I've got all these contacts, but the authority aspect of, like, my boss, I don't have a boss anymore. I'm my own boss. Woo. However, then your clients become your shackles and you serve them. And eventually I became like, I just got used to it and realized, okay, it is what it is. The shackles you choose is a great way of putting it.
Yeah.
The control side of it.
Yeah, exactly. It's the what do they say? The devil you're willing to dance with type of thing, right? So What were some of your other? I remember Secret Handshake was a big thing, and I kind of want you to talk about that. Were there any other entrepreneurial things that you had done previous to that? I remember at one point you telling me in school you were doing entrepreneurial things or something.
Well, as a kid, just your standard kid stuff like lemonade stand. I had like crafts, necklaces that I would sell at farmers markets, things like that. Ever since I could like talk, I was doing something. Yeah, just kid stuff. For I guess when I got a job, I think my first job was when I was 14, got into restaurants, the service industry, waitressing and bartending. Had that kind of entrepreneurial vibe because you could provide really good service and make better tips than other waitresses and waiters. And so that was kind of fun because you could just hustle and, sell and, upsell people, get their bill higher. And then like the money aspect is fun when you're young like that. If you're 25 and making money, it's exciting. I think there's all those.
You were a
old
waitress
sayings.
at 14?
No, I started as a dishwasher. I don't think I was allowed to waitress till your alcohol service license thing kicks in like 18. That would be funny. Little 14-year-old. Like double Jack and Coke, thanks.
Yeah. Sure, no problem.
Okay, what's that?
Jack doesn't work here.
You go in the back. Who's Jack?
Yeah. Is there someone Jack back here?
Yeah.
Talk about Secret Handshake, because I always thought that was something amazing that you had created here in Winnipeg.
Yeah, that was really fun. Those are very fond memories. I wish I could go back sometimes. We had just so many good people. So when I moved back to Winnipeg, I was studying overseas, and then I came back and I just kind of missed having all my college buddies and my industry peeps. I didn't have those people because I didn't go to Red River. I was coming in fresh and it's like, oh man, where do people hang out? And I asked around, there's nothing. So a couple friends at the time, we started talking about it. We're like, well, let's just start a meetup and I don't know, see if anyone shows up. And it ended up turning into, we ran it for like 4 or 5 years. Once a month, we would meet just at a pub and everyone would have their creative angle. It was kind of loose, but the Secret Handshake was creative entrepreneurs. So we had people like in film, in interactive website building, lots of web developers, graphic designers, photographers, all those kind of creative types would hang out at the pub once a month. And most were self-employed. So people came like religiously because it was their Friday beer night. They didn't have like an office job or work friends. Those became your work friends. So it was very fun. Yeah, a lot of good people.
That was a meetup before meetups became a thing, right?
Yeah. I think it was early days. The meetup site itself, like meetup.com, we used that almost the whole time. Okay. So it was pretty early on.
I'm pretty sure I went to a Secret Handshake event at one point.
Yeah?
I think so.
Well, that's where I met your employee who I gave the business
Melissa?
card to. It was, well, I knew Melissa already. It was someone else.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, I can't remember. But they said, yeah, my boss needs a copywriter. Can I get your card? I'm like, sure, here you go.
But I find that's one of the defining things about entrepreneurs, or about people who they convert an idea, they implement ideas. Many people dream and have ideas, oh, it'd be nice to do this or that or whatever. But if they're not entrepreneurs, they don't really pursue implementing those ideas. Where entrepreneurs have an idea, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna build this. I'm gonna, and then they just go into action plan, right? And building it, making it a reality. So
Yeah, it's like the old Bookedin wireframes that that have still to this day held up. Tell us about those. When did you start those?
I want 2010, 9, 10. I had the idea to do Bookedin, and I sat for, I don't know, about 3 to 6 months just drafting out wireframes to way too much detail. But
We
that's
still
me.
use them.
But I literally designed the whole, which like 30% has been built still to this day.
Oh yeah.
So it was kind of way overzealous. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. I talked to a few people in the industry that, hair salons and massage people who ran massage businesses, and just talking to them about appointment scheduling. And so yeah, it was fun. That, to me, the creative designing aspect of software is probably the funnest part. That's why when I don't have a lot of time to spend in product, I don't really enjoy my job. That's the part that I find the most fun. But yeah, that was the old wireframes, and pull those out every few years. And
yeah. Why I bring them up though is because you're talking about that action. A lot of people come up with ideas. Oh, it'd be nice. Wouldn't we should do this? Oh, our town really needs this, but they'll never do it. You have to have the blood of an entrepreneur. You just genetically, you go out and just do it. And you did it. And that's why we're here today.
I think we just like to alter reality.
We're like mad scientists.
That's how all progress is made, right? You have a thought, or a human has a thought, and they just want to somehow move some molecules around, atoms, to alter the state of reality. They're going to build a home, or build a city, or fly to Mars, or or whatever, right? Like let's want to talk about mental health. There's been a lot of ups and downs in the time that we've worked together. I'm sure you've, as most people, career journeys and life journeys, there's always ups and downs. What were some of the, and just to the degree that you feel like discussing, what were some of the really challenging parts of working on a startup in the last few years? Low points, if you have any, and how did you deal with that?
Probably the biggest challenge the entire time is like managing expectations, where you're the founder and it's a very small business and we're trying to move forward. Probably the biggest challenge is what to expect. Like, we're going to do this. What's going to happen as a result? You're predicting the future. Is it, we launched a new logo a couple of years ago. What is that really going to do for us? How do you measure that? Some things are actually impossible to measure. Some are much easier, where, a page view, click, those are so easy to measure in marketing. Digitally, it's getting easier to measure. Mental health wise, the impact is really just stress, I think, because things inevitably move forward, and then we've gotten into a lot of arguments, you and I, over the past, and you like rake me over the coals for things, and sometimes I don't have an answer, and it's like, well, fuck's sakes, Mike, we agreed to do this, and now you're mad. It's, I think, a personal communication challenge between you and I, really, what caused the most of my like mental health stressors. I do recognize, like, this is just work is stressful. It's nothing personal. Everyone I talk to has these exact same challenges, so it's just startup life. You just do it, and you got to focus though on the good. I find where I try to look back and see what we've built and see all our happy customers and see like profits are getting better, and the positives are what do it for me, and the life I've been able to build on the side. Like working for you, I make money to like pay my bills, and I can just look around. I was able to move. You have been super flexible.
Quite a few times.
I've moved a few times. I like moving. But the thing
Yeah.
was like in
That's a great thing
2015.
about having remote work, right? Is you're no longer your kind of personal life and work life don't need to be chained together, right? Like
Yeah.
you don't have to give up your job to move to a city that you'd like to live in, right? So
Yeah,
you take
exactly.
your job with you wherever you go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's why I'm still around to a large degree, because my family, my husband wanted to go to school in a different province, and we left. And you were like, okay, cool. See you on Monday on whatever video platform we used at the time.
You could work from Mars for all I care.
Yeah. It's good that way.
As long as there's Wi-Fi on Mars.
Yeah, I think the focus is, for me, like the ups and downs are really hard, and it's a very demanding industry. It's lots of competition, but focus for me is so important, focusing on the good and the positive, and not just, I believe that the way you think is so important for how your life turns out.
Yeah. Have you ever taken or done any cognitive behavioral therapy stuff? Like I've taken two courses through my life.
No, I haven't, but
No?
I think you even sent me the links to
Yeah.
them one time, and I just didn't do them.
It's amazing stuff, because it's exactly what you just said, which is it gives you a framework for using your cognitive power to reframe your thoughts in a different way, so that their effect doesn't impact your emotions and behaviors in a negative way. So yeah, it's not necessarily about positive thinking. I'm not big on positive thinking. However, objective thinking and balanced thinking makes sense to me. And maybe that's the same thing as positive thinking to other people, but it's not always positive. But if you can say to yourself, well, let's say something really stressful is going on, being overrun with thoughts like, am I going to lose my job? Am I, and thinking positively would be like, oh no, I'm sure my boss is super nice. He'd never fire me, they're, just maybe that works for some people. But for me, it's more about, well, what's the likelihood of, like, just statistically thinking about that, or, even if it happened, of course, I could find another job. It wouldn't be the end of the world. So just framing it differently, and sort of, it's like disarming a bomb, right?
Yeah.
In a way. It's you have this thought that's like causing anxiety, and it's just, you go in with you sort of force yourself to really question that thought, and by doing so, you disarm the bomb. You disarm that thought's power over your emotion, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's kind of more or less what you do, but that's I think in some way what cognitive behavioral therapy is just using thoughts to.
I liked what you said about positive thinking. That phrase, I think, is just so overused. It doesn't explain it properly. Positive thinking is almost like delusional. It's more about rational, the disarming. I think I do that, where if I have an anxious thought, I think like, why am I anxious about this? Where is that coming from? Is it a childhood trauma? Is it something unconscious or conscious that is happening? Is it something else that's unrelated that I'm just like sleep? we were talking about sleep earlier today. Sometimes it's as simple as just sleeping, get a good
Yeah.
night's sleep, and then the next day is a new day, and it doesn't fucking matter anymore. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, that was just
Yeah.
late night anxiety. I tend to get it more in the night than in the day. So I've learned to teach myself, like, oh, it's 10 p.m. and you're worrying about something. Just go to bed.
Yeah.
And then the next day, oftentimes it's not a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you remember any particular like moments where things were really tough, like lows, and how did you sort of deal with that?
Like in life,
Any
or
yeah,
saying
life. Yeah, I'm just, just curious for anyone that's listening, hearing other people's experiences and being through low points, and how you dealt with it and how you came out of that scenario and kind of resumed regular life eventually, right? Sometimes it happens quickly, sometimes it takes a while. But what were the keys to kind of coming out of that? I think is beneficial to hear other people's stories, because there's no magic formula to it, right?
Yeah,
depends on the person, depends on the scenario.
Yeah, I think it really does depend on the scenario, the person, the time, but stories help me, like hearing other people's struggles and how they came through stuff is just helps to hear that and think, oh, okay, if that person saw the other side, then I'll probably be fine too. It's hard for me to reflect back because things are really good right now. Things
Yeah.
are very chill. It's summer.
Yeah.
The most recent stressor would be like gutting our house.
Oh,
we
right.
had we got this, it's like a shack in the middle of nowhere.
You kind of took some time off, right? To deal with that.
Yes. Yeah, that was helpful. What happened was the house, it had like a mold problem in the attic, condensation, and then it was like gathering on the inside of the roof, and it was turning into mold. Everyone in the house got sick. We didn't know why all over winter, and we all thought we were going crazy. And then we go up in the attic, we're like, oh, okay, there it is. But it was such a long-term process to get better, to go on like supplements and detox your whole body, and then gut the house and get all of these quotes from contractors and find money to do it, and just
so that
open the window.
The stress of kind of, you're continuously sort of breathing it in while you're, or whatever, right? Like you're living in it, and potentially it
was hard to see the end as well, because it's not common what the symptoms are. I had a friend who I confided in. I was really embarrassed because if you live in a moldy house, it's embarrassing. But she's from Secret Handshake too. She's like, that happened to me, and I got really sick from it. And all of a sudden, I'm not alone. And we just talked through it, and she shared some things that really helped her. And
what were some of the, if you don't, and you don't have to share if you're not comfortable, but I'm curious, what were some of the symptoms?
It's your entire body reacts because your immune system starts to it affects your immune system. So for some people, their symptoms are different than others. But I was tested for arthritis, joint pain, my elbows.
Okay.
Nosebleeds, depression, dizzy.
Wow.
The worst day ever, I forgot left from right. Like, on your taps, hot and cold.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know which one's hot. And I was like, what? No, this is so bad. So that was probably the worst day. And my husband came home. I don't know which is left and which is right. I have my wedding ring.
Yeah.
And I forgot what hand it goes on.
Wow.
It was crazy.
And how did you arrive that it was a mold problem? Like, how did you eventually figure that out?
I think it was God, because I was in my bedroom, and we're renovating all the time. This is a very old house. I had no clue there was mold going on. I thought my pillow was dusty. My eyes were watering in my sleep, just pouring water, sniffling. I'm just like, I'll just wash my pillow. It's fine. So the whole time, I'm maybe a month into getting sick, 2 months. Anyway, long story. I'm in my bedroom, and there's these like edges along the ceiling molding, there's like a trim, and it had a little gap in it. It's like, oh, wouldn't it look nice if it had like some caulking, just smooth it out? It'd look pretty. And I go up there in my ladder, and I get up close, and I see a little spot. I ripped off the board, mold all over my, right where I sleep. So it was just, like divine intervention. I wouldn't have found it otherwise.
Where you noticed a crack.
Yeah. I was just up there doing like cosmetic, just fun little project, and there it was. So then we started ripping down the boards, and then up in the attic, and then it was like, oh wow. Trauma. I'm getting all rattled up just talking about it.
When we moved into our house, I remember we did a test for mold because Christy, my wife, was quite concerned as well, because it's an old house, and we don't have water leaking, but because we spent a pile of money kind of sealing our foundation when we first moved in, because we live in an area that has in a city, and in an area that foundations and leakage is a common, right? And
super common.
That's hotbed for mold, right? If you have moisture coming in. So anyway, but I remember my wife being concerned about that, so we went and got some tests, and no, that was for radon. Sorry.
Okay, yeah.
I don't think we ever did tests for mold. We should do that, actually.
Yeah, the mold tests are kind of scammy. Like, it's more of a visual thing, unless you could get me to just come in your house and sniff around, because I'm sensitive to it now.
Oh, really?
I'll just come and be your mold tester. It would be to the point where I would enter a room and my eye would start to itch. Now I'm all better. But if you're not feeling it, if Christy or the kids aren't feeling like symptoms and you don't have leaks, probably fine. Just check under your sinks. Do you have radiators? Those like old heater thing?
I haven't seen. I mean, we've done some renos and stuff. I've never found any, so probably fine. But anyway,
that's good.
So I mean, coming out of that, did things start to get better immediately when you discovered what the problem was? Was a lot of the mental strain and kind of caused by the fact that you didn't know what was going on?
I think so. I thought I was just going nuts, because the doctors were testing me for arthritis, they did all these blood tests, and the only thing that showed up on blood tests was minor inflammation. And I remember going in for the blood test. At the blood test clinic, I caught COVID. So the day I had my follow-up was on Zoom, and I was like awfully sick, like COVID sick, very, very, probably the worst sick I've ever been. And I was like, great. Should have just stayed home. I'm kind of rambling here now. As soon as I knew what it was, everything got lighter, and then I knew, okay, I just have to like get fresh air, open the windows. We have to renovate. That's going to take time, but activated charcoal vitamin pills, they like suck it out of your bloodstream. They really helped. Just knowing what was going on, it's night and day.
Yeah. That's wow. That's quite a story. But I remember there were other times through, work related stresses and stuff, and you're very resilient. I find, certainly I remember you being affected by stress, let's say, like heavily at certain points, but you always were resilient, and you never sort of, you would eventually, if at a few points, you would sort of take time to deal with it. And I think that's critical for anybody to realize when they just need to step away, take time, right? To just deal with what's going on. But, you were always sort of resilient in that, coming back, resuming life, that sort of thing seemed to always be kind of the thing and I think for me, and that's always been key as well, is to see everything as a hurdle, an obstacle, no matter how big it is, as opposed to a wall,
I like that.
I think that's a mentality towards life that you can develop slowly, even if maybe you don't have it. And I see sort of people on it's a continuum, right? Some see everything as a wall, some see everything as minor hurdles, and then 90% of people are somewhere in between. I find you can definitely change, like some of that is probably genetic, I imagine, like most things are, but you definitely have some control over moving on that scale. And I think if you're on the end of everything is a wall, there's definitely a lot of just by adapting a different approach, and even telling yourself that this isn't a wall, this is a hurdle. It might be a high hurdle. It might have to
a really wall looking hurdle.
Scale, spend some energy scaling this hurdle.
A hurdle that's made of bricks.
But it's not
like
a wall.
It's not a wall.
And even walls you can walk around, right? So I think getting back to, and I know I've had family members who have had serious mental health challenges as well, and I remember talking to professionals about that, and to get back to regular activities, regular life, like go back to work, like routine. This idea of don't staying away from work, staying away from regular life things for too long isn't beneficial. Like you kind of just need to resume regular things, even if you still don't feel great. You know what I mean? Like, because it's the act and the behavior resuming them that actually is therapy. You need to be around people. You need to be involved with other things. Otherwise, you kind of just sit and
ruminate.
Yeah, that was the word I was looking for. Yeah,
I've done that before.
That's usually when my trigger, when I know that the rumination is starting to take over. I need to just move. I need to get back to like I don't really have really lengthy periods like that, because I'm generally up, but there's definitely when you have bad days, bad weeks.
For sure, everyone goes through that, for sure. But it's the key. Rumination isn't inherently like bad. You can ruminate, but just don't do it for a week.
I don't know. I think reflecting can be beneficial. Ruminating, I'm not convinced yet how beneficial that is. There's a difference between reflecting and ruminating, but
that's true. For
me, I remember there was one point, work related, and it was early on when we had a really bad month in sales that I'd personally never been through a kind of, because I work off projections, and there's a period where, because we didn't have a lot of money and we were obviously trying to grow, so everything was getting reinvested, and so the cash, it kind of, like, for lack of a better word, your business is kind of living paycheck to paycheck almost, where you don't have a lot, like a large cash reserve, and so you're just kind of hoping that your projections aren't too off, because otherwise, if they're too off, then you're all of a sudden 2-3 months down the road, you're out of money. Oh my God, what am I going to do? Right. I definitely didn't. Those are early days that I still hadn't learned some very important things about running a business. So I remember we had a month or a couple of months, 1 month especially, that the sales really dropped. I don't even remember why, but I think we hadn't really understood seasonality yet of our business and all that. Anyway, and also the way I did projections wasn't great. My wife pointed it out because we would talk once in a while about, the business and stuff. And she has this amazing ability. She doesn't really want to deal with my business, but we have these meetings every 3 months where we review, and she'll always like quite often she would come in. It's that outsider's perspective that, I don't really care about what you're doing, but here's what I see. And sometimes that's so valuable for someone who's not like in the trenches battling, because you lose perspective, right? It's really easy to lose perspective.
Yeah.
Like the forest through the trees, right? So
that's so valuable. Like having an advisor.
Yeah. She's my advisor. So she would once in a while point out these important things. And I remember going through that and showing her, I'm like, oh my God, we had a really bad month. And so now that changes my projections. And oh my God, we're going to be run out of money in a few months. And what's kind of blah, blah, blah. And she's like, well, looks at my projections. She's like, why are you doing your projections this way? Like, it doesn't seem right. She's like, if you have, obviously there's going to be variations every month. You're not going to get it right. So it seems the way you're doing projections, that when there's a minor variation, it has this massive automatic impact on the rest of your year. And that just doesn't seem right. And she was right. And so, but I had such bad panic. Like this is the first time I ever had a panic attack. I remember going to bed, my heart racing. My mind was just falling down an abyss. Oh my God, it's all over. The business isn't going to survive. I'm going to have to let people go. I had felt I had such good people. How will I ever get such a good team back? All this, like, just my mind just ran away and was full on panic attack. Couldn't sleep. I'd never experienced that before. Because you hadn't experienced it, you don't sort of really know where is this going.
Yeah. Even did you know you were having a panic attack in the moment? Or you were just like,
no,
okay.
I didn't know that, this is what it is. I just was experiencing it. And then later, thankfully I had already for quite a long time, been doing meditation and breathing exercises and all of these things to manage my bipolar for many years. And so I had those tools. And so that's the only thing I knew. So I sort of applied those the next day, and they kind of helped reset. But, then talked to my wife, and then she kind of helped me to understand that, to reframe it. She helped me sort of in a cognitive behavioral way to kind of reframe my thinking. And it sort of came out of that, and everything was fine. It, like, in retrospect, really wasn't a big deal at all. And I still look back to that event and go, wow, like, how could that have affected me so intensely? And I've been through probably way more, like, in my life, seemingly traumatic things that never affected me like that. But this seemingly trivial thing just set me off to the point where I thought I was going to die. Like, it was so odd reflecting on that, thinking, why did that trigger that? Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah. So, but it's one of the, like, I believe that struggles are gifts, and it's one of the greatest, like, and the greater the struggle, the greater the gift, because you have this immense opportunity to learn something super deep about yourself and about life and stuff. And that's what I came out of that with, was I think if I could put it into really simple terms, the realization was it was just a panic attack. That's it. End of story.
Yeah. It wasn't some special case, some life thing that caused you to have it. It just happened.
It just happened, and it was a reaction. And you learn that there's like exactly what you had said just a little while ago, that there's tomorrow, and tomorrow will be different. And likely this will not persist forever. I will not be in a state of panic attack for the rest of my life now, 35 years, right? So
Mhm.
Or why did I say 35?
You're 35.
Uh,
It's true.
no, but
And this too
yeah,
shall
and
pass. That's an
this
old
too shall
phrase.
pass. And that's probably the greatest learning I got out of that was, that I have applied going forward. When things have happened where I've had moments where probably have had other anxiety, where like I get sort of mild anxiety feelings here and there now, like,
Mhm.
life's gotten really busy in the last few, like with
Mm.
kids and, the just the length of running the business and all of that. Like it's pretty, anyway, I guess it's mindfulness in a way where just slowly over time, using the tools of breathing and meditation, all that, you just kind of slowly learn to detach from what's happening inside. You learn, you realize that you're not your feelings, you're not your thoughts. It just happen. It's just shit that happens inside the casing.
Yeah.
And whatever, like, right, and you just know that, oh, okay, well, right now I'm feeling very angry or frustrated or maybe sad or super joyous, and
Yeah.
I'm just on a particular wave at this moment, and the waves constantly change and fluctuate, right? And yeah, just happens, right? Do you find through your experiences, like, how has your perspective changed over time with respect to dealing with, because they say as you get older in general, you gain perspective, right? Like that's one of the elders, right? Like that's,
Yeah. I think I'm maybe like 5 years behind you on that one. So please impart more of your wisdom on me. Where some in the moment of things being really hectic, yeah, I'm slowly starting to learn that it's just life and life happens. Other people can have terrible moods around you, and don't let that ruin your day. For example, just things happen, and tomorrow is a new day. So I'm like a baby in my walk with that. I'm just sort of starting to live it through my day to day.
You've taught me something that I've used quite often since you've taught it to me, which is always assume positive intent, or don't assume negative intent. I guess is the sibling of that.
That's
that
a
was
handy
very,
one.
Yeah, that's you told me that, and I found that very powerful because it's true.
I used it all the time still. Yeah. With other people as well, just because I'm the kind of person who like just thinks that everyone else is a perfectionist, but they're not. And other people's opinions and things like that used to drive me a lot, where I think too much about other people in a sense. So and then you get in your own head a little too much if you go down that path, and people aren't thinking that deeply about things. They're not going out of their way to like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, everyone's generally just trying to deal with the storm that's going on inside them, not really
yeah, like life is
super
so
immersed
hectic
in what's happening. And I find I'm quick to judge, and I don't share the common day perspective of judging is bad and you shouldn't judge. I think that's a wave that will pass because it's ridiculous. Judging is so vital to survival and it's so automatic, and we do it all the time regardless of whether we want to believe it or not, because it's critical to survive.
Oh, it's purely even on a safety aspect. If you're walking down a street in the middle of a city and you look down an alleyway and there's something sketchy going on, you don't go down that alleyway. You keep going. You don't make eye contact. You go. That's a quick judgment. That's judgment, common sense. Judgment is so important for
any judgment is natural. And so to feel ashamed, I think, about being judgmental or judging is ridiculous, because that's like being ashamed of feeling fearful. You can't help it. It's a part of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and of course dealing with fear is a thing, and how fears impact you, and then that's separate. But there's absolutely zero logical reasoning to feel ashamed of feeling fearful, like in my opinion there is for being judgmental, because it's automatic. It's something we do because we're humans. So now for me, the exercise has always been how you use that judgment, right? And what you apply it to, and how you apply and what you do with it is really the thing that can be beneficial. Like anything, how you use fear as well can be, fear is a lot of energy, and you can, if you learn to harness that, you could utilize fear, and many people do, to motivate themselves. You know, how you use that energy, how you use that. I'm a person that likes to read people. So when I meet people, I generally take a read on them, and I make a decision about who they are, and given their behaviors or how they talk or whatever, this is likely what they're like. And it's not super accurate, especially when you don't know them well and you're judging it based off of one conversation or one thing they said or whatever, taken, you know, maybe somewhat or largely out of context. But I do it anyway, because that's what I do. If I have to work with that person, or if I have to do something with that person, or if I know somebody that's going to interact with that person, and or conversely, understanding that description that I formed about this person is based off of very little information, therefore it's very likely largely inaccurate, helps me to be very objective about, not to feel bad about how I've painted this person, but also to understand that there's a very large degree, likely, statistically, probability wise, very large degree of error in terms of. So I don't know if that really answered your question very well, but
it's like first impressions help.
I went through a period of feeling, I think, ashamed about being so judgmental, because I am that way naturally. It's been immensely helpful. Like in HR recruiting, I find that my judgments are, my reads are, over time, get pretty damn accurate. Like I don't know how many times we've hired people. I mean, you've been through this process right alongside with me, where there's been red flags and we've ignored them, and eventually we should have listened to them, you know, and it's like happened so much, where over time but that's counteractive, right? Because
or even just to give someone another chance, like, oh, I get a good feeling about this person. They haven't proven themselves yet, but let's give them a little more time.
Yeah.
We just hired them, this person, give them 3 months. But other times it's like, oh, this person's been with us 2 weeks and I can already tell.
So maybe that's actually a better example. You asked me for an example. Is in recruiting. If you are a judgmental person, and instead of being ashamed of that, you've actually learned to hone that power and use it as a positive. It's really helpful and applicable in the hiring process, because it's really painful and detrimental to a business if you can't hire very well. Like if you're just off a lot, because it's painful to bring people on, spend a bunch of time, and realize 6 months later that it's not the right fit or it's not the right person, and then have to go back and redo it. I mean, it's super costly, painful, and very counterproductive. So if you have that capability, that strong judgment, that sense of, and you're confident in it, and there's no way you can be confident about something if you feel ashamed of it. So you have to get rid of that, right? Be confident in it, and it can be hugely beneficial, right? Like, just sometimes it's all there on paper on the resume, and you know the candidate may seem perfect, but you just have that feeling like, I don't know, I don't like how they talk about this, or I don't like how,
like that one
red
guy.
flags. And over time, you just learn to not question that judgment. Go, you know what? It's a quick judgment. You don't know this person. Sure, you can sort of
there's the benefit
tell
of the
yourself,
doubt
you can give them the benefit of the doubt, but
I
if
think I
you're
needed to.
confident in your ability to judge, it's actually detrimental to be giving too much benefit of the doubt and not listening to your judgment.
I agree. There's an example that comes to mind. We were recruiting, I was doing the first round and you hadn't yet been brought in. I was like presenting top 4 candidates to you. So as I'm going through this first round, I believe I mentioned this to you in the past, it would have been nice to have your judgmentalness for this one candidate because they interviewed so well. They had all of these great examples, their portfolio. It was a performance marketing role where the statistics and results were very important. Everything was so beautiful, so slick. I didn't see it, but then the next day, this person, I didn't know that it was the same person at the time, in our support, someone in our support emailed like our support person a very lewd reply saying like, fuck you guys, go to hell, I hate you, kind of thing. Like 2 lines of just horrible, crass stuff to our direct support person. Like they brought it up to me saying like, this happened, like what do I do with this? One of our customers said this horrible thing, and then I looked at the email address. That's the candidate who was interviewing. It's like, wow. And I called them out on it and said like, listen, like we just got this thing. Like I didn't say anything. Like I was on the phone with them and I said, this came into our support inbox from your email and here's what it said. And I gave them the floor and they denied it. And then the next day they confessed and said, actually, that was me, blah, blah, blah. My wife divorced me, a big sob story. But anyway, long story short, it's just, I didn't see it at the onset. The red flag that came up just out of nowhere. I didn't pick up any red flags at all until this like support email came through. So
Oh yeah, well,
I wonder if
sometimes there are no red flags. Like, I mean, the email was a red flag.
Yeah, I think they sabotaged themselves. It wasn't an
Yeah.
accident. They must have, and
Yeah.
it was just so strange. I can't ever
Yeah.
forget that story. Yeah, I guess I wondered if I would have picked up on it if I was more judgmental, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the concept of mindfulness, and I've started studying it and practicing mindful things every day. I think that's what it's taught me. And one of the greatest things I heard, I took mindfulness-based stress reduction course with my wife a couple of 2-3 years ago or so, maybe.
Yeah.
It was during COVID. And it's fantastic. I would recommend that course to anybody. It is a phenomenal course. And they go through, it's a really deep teaching of what mindfulness is all about. And as part of that, they talk about sort of the 7 sources of suffering.
Oh.
And, you naturally relate to some of them more than others. Maybe others kind of aren't sort of something that comes up a lot in your life. But the one that comes up for me is striving. So striving can be a source of suffering. Doing this course, I immediately, being judgmental, I saw all of these things as, striving. I shouldn't strive. Like I'm judging, right? And so striving isn't good. Oh my God, what am I gonna like? So part of me was kind of like, oh, I'm gonna suffer forever because I strive, and I love striving for things. And so I guess I'm locked into suffering forever. And it was like a part of me that was kind of like a little bit depressed about learning that. But what I realized later, someone else in the industry, a wellness coach, I had talked to him about this at one point, and he looked at me and said, well, striving isn't better than not striving. And I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, well, that's not the point of that lesson. It's not that one is better than the other. It's just a recognition of the areas that it's all about balance, right? And it's all about just being aware. There's no force that's purely
And you can't avoid suffering. Life is suffering.
No, you can't. I
People
guess
who
it's
try to
you
avoid
can't avoid
suffering
struggle, but you
don't.
can 100% avoid suffering. That's
Then
kind
you're a
of
bubble boy. You just sit and do nothing all
no.
day.
Well, it goes.
I just am the complete mindset of like avoiding stress and avoiding suffering is not the kind of life I would choose. Some
But
people feel better that way.
but suffering is different than struggle, and it's different than stress. Suffering is how you interpret struggle and how you interpret stress and negative or positive things.
Mm-hmm.
That's the source of suffering. If you follow sort of Buddhist teachings and philosophies, that's the central tenet of that philosophy. Is all suffering is caused by our worrying and continuous pursuit of positive feelings and trying to diminish or get rid of struggle. And it's when you accept all of it and learn to detach from that is when you can eliminate suffering, right? So it's, you have to sort of, if it's new, you have to take a little bit of time to sort of embrace and read about. But that's probably, for me, the central philosophy that and the thing I always try to work on is through using tools like meditation, is to learn to not look at things as good or bad, bad or evil or good. They all have a good or bad, evil or good, and learning to just sort of detach and let things happen and let feelings come and go and not sort of be you have control over suffering, full control. Anyway, that also doesn't mean that you can, again, beat yourself up about, oh, I'm still suffering, therefore I'm not doing good enough. That's missing the point as well.
That's missing the point for sure.
But I think it's the understanding of where suffering comes from and what the source of suffering is. And when I think at least my understanding, it's, everybody has a different perspective, but my understanding is that it can be controlled, and with enough work, if you chose to dedicate your entire life to eliminating suffering, you could do it. Now, whether it's a journey, right? Life's a journey. So
it's like that meme of it's like a cartoon dog and he's drinking his coffee and his house is on fire and he goes, "This is fine."
Yeah.
It's a mental.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could get a new house.
Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting stuff. Routines. Do you have specific routines that help you maintain kind of your mental health, stabilize your mental health?
Time-wise, definitely I have routines. They're very loose and flowy, just to open up time. It's not very stringent. So working my own hours completely unlocks that. So I sleep, I get up. The time doesn't really matter. I do have an alarm, but sometimes I sleep it, whatever. I have dogs too, so they need to get up and eat and run around. But routine-wise, for mental health, one thing that I think, well, I guess a list of things I think are really helpful for me: fresh air, going outside. I have a gratitude journal. Every day I write 5 things I'm grateful for. I try every day. I have this one book and I keep going in and writing in the little corners from front to back. I think I've been through it 3 times, maybe 4 or 5 years now. And it's not even the book itself, or it's just the act of like acknowledging things I'm grateful for in the morning really helps me to just have a good mood. Sometimes I wake up in a great mood. Some days I wake up in a terrible mood. Despite it all, I write in this thing. And I find when I'm not, say a couple weeks go by and I haven't written in it, I can kind of feel like my perspective has changed a little bit. So that's definitely a routine I love. Yeah, that's pretty much it routine wise. Keeping it open and loose.
Yeah.
Gratitude journal, fresh air. That's pretty much my whole life. And just go with the flow. Like I like to have enough time in my day that I'm not rushed, where, you know, if you run into a neighbor outside, you're like walking the dog or something, and they want to talk for 5 minutes, I can do that. And I'm not in a rush to like, wow, this is a luxury I have because of the life I've built. Like I work part-time, I'm work from home, I have my own hours, don't have kids, I don't live in a certain way, specifically just to like keep things nice and breezy.
Yeah.
So yeah, it works for me. I'm really happy right now how that's all gone.
Yeah.
In the past, it's been like punching the clock never really worked for me. I think my energy goes up and down. Like I can get into the flow state of work and I forget to eat. I forget to drink water. I'll work for 3 hours straight without blinking because I'm so into this project. But then other days I'll do like 1 hour in an entire day. And yeah, some people might take 30 hours to do one project that takes me 4 hours because I get into that flow state. So the energy levels are so up and down. I just kind of harness them somehow. So a traditional 9 to 5, I don't think is the right structure for humans personally. I think the whole trend of like the 4-hour work week, 4-day weeks, that's been in the news a lot lately. I think you can get a lot of work done in like 10 hours a week. The work of 3 people, you know, it's, yeah, that 40-hour work week in the office in a cubicle. I don't understand why that's a thing. I think that needs to be disrupted.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're all, I mean, that's kind of the culture of our company, right? I think we're all subscribed to that philosophy. I think I've read at least a fair bit of articles that talk about studies that point out that people have differing sort of energy cycles through the day. And I think just the fact that we were talking before the podcast about sleep, right? And how the Stephen Walker is the guy that wrote Why We Sleep. I watched, he has a masterclass. And so I watched his masterclass series. And one of the big things I took away from that is everyone has a chronotype. So we're genetically born literally to be a morning person or a night owl or somewhere in between. And as we age from babies all the way through teenagers to adults to elders, there's some wiggle room in that, right? Like, as obviously babies wake up early, teenagers sleep late, and then as we approach late, like elder years, we tend to go back to waking up early. But the boundaries of that are genetically predetermined. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and you can't change them. And this is pretty
Yeah,
like
that makes sense. I will
this is one of
never
his
be a
pivotal
morning person.
things. No, neither. Same here. And I don't know how many decades I've spent trying to convert myself because of all this. I
That's
remember.
me and you on those 8 a.m. meetings.
I
Like,
remember
okay.
preaching about it to others, like, oh, you gotta wake up in the morning, because I went through a phase where I was waking up at 5:30, going to jiu-jitsu class, and once I was up, and I mean, sure, it felt great, and
That's adrenaline.
yeah, exactly, and that's the difference, right?
Because you've been like body slamming people
your
all
natural
morning.
energy versus running on adrenaline, right? Like just the recognition of that. Yeah. So, but yeah, and then I watched this master class, and and then thinking back to my teenager, and that, it's like there was actually a test that you could take online to sort of give you an idea of where, what your ideal sleep hours are.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, mine, like when I took it, and it's not exact 100%, no.
2 a.m. to 5 a.m.
But I think it was like 12 to 8 or 11. Yeah, it was like 12 a.m. to 8 or something like that was what the test determined anyway. But yeah, I mean, I sort of realized, man, I'm a night owl. I've always been a night owl. My mom's a night owl. Same thing. I remember having the same conversation with her, and she's like, when I was doing the morning thing, she was like, "Oh, I envy you so much. I've always wanted to be do the morning thing.
Yeah.
I could never do it." Right?
It's like women were like, "Oh, I wish I had curly hair. Oh, I wish I had straight hair."
Yeah. And I thought, oh yeah, like I beat my mom at something. But then I realized, no, she's smarter than me, because she just built her life around her natural cycle, whereas I was killing myself to try to, live a routine that I just wasn't genetically designed for, and it had, just constant long-term sort of suffering because of that. Anyway, but I didn't know it was a thing. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I always thought you could change it.
Existed,
or
right?
you could just like
Yeah.
become a morning person.
Yeah.
I think morning people want us to think that. Morning people like create those little videos where it's like, wow, look at all the things I do.
Everyone's trying to convince everyone else that the way they live their life should be for everyone else, and
Yeah.
myself included. I'm like the worst perpetrator of that. But yeah, anyways, so apart from the sleep, the kind of your ideal time to sleep is all part of how you're wired. Your natural energy cycles are wired. So some people get their creative energy in the mornings or late at nights or whatever, right? So I think from what I understand, honing in on, and there's things you can do. Apparently they say to figure it out, you have to keep you can keep like for like a week or two, keep a very detailed journal of where your energy at, how you feel, but like literally down to 15-minute segments. It's super like, it's a little painful to do, but you don't do it for long. And then you kind of, by doing that, you can sort of look at that data after a week or two, and you can see it's pretty clear where you have energy and where you have down kind of low energy points through the day. And so you construct your work and your life essentially around when you naturally have energy and when you don't, right? Instead of trying to bulldoze through periods where you have low energy and you're trying to do something that requires high energy, and you're just
like drinking Red Bulls, trying to tough it out.
Yeah. And that's what we do, right? We just artificially drug ourselves up to get right. And that just has so many bad long-term side effects and becomes addiction, and it's hard to wean yourself off. And you also build like your social life around that too, right? Like, so you're running on adrenaline, caffeine, alcohol, whatever, and you build and then all of a sudden one day you realize, oh man, this is all wrong. And like, not only do you have to change like your own personal habits, but a lot of times you have to change your social circles, because you realize, I'm a morning person. I really can't go to these parties anymore, which means I can't hang out with these people anymore. And that can be tough, right? It's one of the toughest things to change your social circles or your social relationships. And I think that's what keeps people sometimes living a life that, isn't designed, they're not naturally, genetically designed for, right? Because they don't want to lose those social bonds, but really they're just continuously suffering because of that mismatch,
staying up
right?
too late.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so back to the point of the work, I absolutely agree that companies would benefit. I mean, this is just, again, my own perspective, and I think you and I share this, where to create an environment where people can work, capitalize on their natural energy cycles to produce the best. Like you said, you can, if you nail it, you can easily do in 10 hours what a person who just isn't, is punching a clock takes 40 hours, and probably better quality on top of that, right?
Oh yeah.
So,
I'm probably thinking about it in my day-to-day for 40 hours, but then I just get it done in half an hour.
Is this true? That was the thing about, we talked about, like, part of what I've started doing is I'm working at nights, which I so tried to get away from for long. And there's still challenges with that because I have a family and kids, and that means I sleep later, and sometimes I miss the morning with my kids, which, you can't have everything. So, but the larger benefit is that I'm not an asshole to my kids. So I think I'm pretty confident they're
okay
say,
with you
if you need
breakfast.
to sleep and miss breakfast, but not be an asshole, we'll take
see you after school.
We'll take it.
That's hilarious.
And my wife too, right? So yeah. So I mean, it's and I can't really explain it, but I know for me that when it allows me, so here's what was happening before, because I was trying to jam all the work and everything I wanted to get done in a day. I was trying to jam it all in the regular work hours. So, and obviously want to be available when my kids are at home, have dinner, whatever. I don't want my mind to be on my work when it's time to have dinner and chat, or maybe go shoot some hoops with my son or daughter outside. I don't want to be stressed about work. So, but because I'm not working at nights because I don't want to sleep late, blah, 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 blah. So had to get everything done. And if I wasn't, because I can't easily let go, if I wasn't so what would end up happening is I would end up working right up until dinner was on the table. And
everyone's like,
then I literally would be just, my wife, like 80% of the times, like, Mike, dinner's right. They're like already halfway done eating, and I'm still like, yeah, I'll be right there,
that's
then I like run
so
to the
annoying.
dinner table, and I'm like totally stressed from the thing I was just doing because I was trying to finish it so fast. So I'm not there.
No.
You're
punching
like
the clock
again. Dinner mode. And then even while, like, I would go through the motions a lot of times of, okay, let's play a board game or something. But as soon as my kids go like to the bathroom, I'd quickly run to the laptop to like finish something else that was still on my mind. Because it was like, I don't have any more like my time's run out for the day. I don't have any more time. And I really, like, I know I won't sleep well if I can't finish certain things, like, because sometimes people are dependent on you. Like the next day I need to get certain things done so that somebody has something done, right? And meetings too, right? During the day, I know we work really hard to eliminate meetings, to eliminate distractions in our culture, but there's days where I spend a lot of the time I have to be available for my team, right? So that's probably still something I can refine a little better, working on. But regardless, end of the day, or at the end, I never slept well because I was going to bed earlier than I was genetically sort of should be. And on top of that, I was going to bed stressed out because I didn't get all my work done. So like I never
Yeah.
slept well. And I would wake up at 4 a.m. stressed out, start thinking about something, and blah, and then just like, and then trying to like, oh God, I gotta sleep. I've only slept for, 5 hours. I need 2 more. And it's just like, it happened so often. And finally, when I said, okay, you know what, screw it. I mean, so now it's like, I'm relaxed because even if I don't finish stuff by 4:30, I don't care because I know I have those 2 hours later. And peaceful hours that nobody's distracting me, kids are sleeping, my employees aren't working, or even if they are, nobody's communicating at that time. I know some developers work late, but we don't talk.
Yeah.
And
Perfect.
I know that that's there, and so I can relax. I can just go shoot hoops, have fun, enjoy whatever, because I know I'll get to finish what I need to finish later.
Beautiful.
And then I do, and it works. And it's not perfect because there's still some, I mean,
no one's perfect though.
Challenges to it, like but my sleeps are way more sound, and and it's kind of like counter, whatever what you read about in the books, right? Like don't work late, don't be on your computer, don't like, but yeah. So I agree that
It's not like a one size fits all thing.
I think that's facilitating how everybody wants to work is so key. From my perspective, the challenges are always making sure that communication is happening in a still somewhat productive manner, so people aren't waiting 3 days for a response to everything, because that is destructive. So I think we have pretty good policies for that.
Yeah. I think too, there are certain people who just have maybe a tendency to abuse a system like that. Like obviously we wouldn't hire someone, or they wouldn't last very long, but if you work in a sort of open asynchronous work, there's a lot of trust, and so you're not necessarily hiring junior people right out of college. You're hiring experts who are vetted and usually are measured on like merit based or some kind of statistic where its output is obvious, where like a writer might write 10 blog posts or whatever, that they're working sometime because they've produced these things, and how long, give or take, that takes. Developers are creating code, and it's easy to measure the output for our business and have that trust, and you can work whenever you want because the work will have to get done, and if it doesn't get done, we'll notice and you'll get fired eventually. But that's thankfully not the case because we have such hardworking people. Our company all care a lot about what we do and probably work too much.
Yeah. You have to have visibility, right? I think that's always been a challenge with remote work, and I think to this day the organizations that struggle with it, I imagine that the big roadblock is because they've relied on their measure of productivity is coming into an office and seeing everybody sitting at their cubicles.
Yeah, your butt's in your chair
a day. Well, that Robin or John was at his desk all day, therefore he's earned his money. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of whether he was surfing Facebook all day or
playing World of Warcraft.
There's still that one. As long as you're in the office and you're at your cubicle, or you're in your and you're doing something on a computer, then you're that's legitimate, right? And so yeah, it's that output based, switching to that
Mhm.
output based. So and I imagine that would be difficult for larger organizations or ones that kind of really don't have much of that, right? Because it's not just a matter of implementing a project management tool or something. It's really a lot of times a big cultural change, right? Because now people are, because they really were not visible. They could, I mean, how many people have you worked with in or the companies and
don't do
jobs who,
anything.
yeah, who quote unquote fuck the dog, right? As
Oh
they
yeah,
say.
I can think
And
of a
they
handful of just like
they get away,
they did nothing.
right? But they were there. They were sitting in their
Yeah,
chair,
they made more than
and
most people at the company
they
too.
learned how to respond to the, you know, the and there was nobody really cared to or measured you know, what they actually did, or at least, you know, did very little of that, right? And I think working remotely, when you have a remote company, you, I want to put it, I can see how you as an organization would have a really difficult time transitioning or allowing remote work. And you've seen this. Some companies have gone and then they retracted back. They literally have said everybody's got to go back and work in the office, blah blah, because they haven't, I think, I'm just sort of imagining, I don't know, I haven't spent time studying this, but I would imagine that part of it is simply because they just haven't been able to convert that culture, or haven't don't have a comfort that if I don't see somebody working in their chair, I cannot feel comfortable that they're earning their salary. Do you know what I mean? All day long. And it's just such an uncomfortable feeling if you're a boss or a manager or whatever who's, you know, has that, because it's been how you've lived, in many organizations have been governed and governed their work, you know, and so it's yeah. And I'm not sure it's for every, not sure it's for every organization. I'm not sure it's for every person, because I don't think everyone wants to have a job where they're really focused on output. I think
No, it's not for everyone. And it's not for every industry. Some industries naturally need to have people in the same room together, collaborating, talking, even just bouncing ideas off of each other. It's necessary in some industries to have that. And if you don't, the work suffers. And maybe that's why some businesses are calling people back into the office. Maybe not. It could just be a mixture of issues. I could imagine a world where like some businesses could go permanent remote, but definitely not many.
I think I I don't ever see everything going remote. I don't see that as even beneficial. I think even simply because people are different. You know, I think certain people just need that physical, even for myself, I find working from home, like I like going to the co-working space once in a while, and I've realized over the last few months, I've just worked at home, and now I really miss that physical interaction of walking into an office and maybe having a chat with someone, you know, that idle chat, just because it gives you energy. And there's a different level of focus. Like sometimes offices can be distracting, but sometimes offices can really help you focus too. It just kind of depends on your personality. So I think there's a mixture, and I see that as definitely, I think definitely think the ability to work from home is important because certain people just thrive on that and are in different stages of life.
Yeah, it's good for families. Like,
right.
oh yeah, my kid's sick and can't go to school, so I'm just gonna be home today.
Yeah.
And 1 day out of 14, you're at home. Who cares? And that's great. And it's helpful and helps with retention, I bet, as well, where some industries that are super demanding in office, a lot of people go on stress leave, particularly when just life gets crazy and it's too much. And then you lose that staffer for like 2 months on stress leave. It's really hard on the person and the business.
All right. Well, we're almost at the 2-hour mark, so we should probably wrap this up.
Time flies. Tucker needs to go outside.
Yeah. Let me ask you some quick fire questions here to end it off. What's your favorite video game?
I like The Sims.
The Sims?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
On PS4.
What's your favorite productivity hack?
I don't know.
Don't know.
Wearing a watch. I don't know. I have no idea.
Favorite productivity tool?
Google Calendar.
Cool. That's it. Just 3. That's all I got.
Oh, that was easy. Except for the second one. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, this has been fun. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thanks for taking the time to do this.
Yeah. Anytime.
All right.
Awesome. Okay, have a good rest of the day.
Take care. Yeah, you too. Thanks,
Bye.
Leanne. Bye.
And that's a wrap. I hope our discussions today have given you some insights, inspiration, or even just food for thought. Whether it's navigating the world of business, championing mental health, adapting to remote work, or keeping up with the latest tech trends, remember, every challenge is a gift, an opportunity to learn more about yourself, others, and the world around us. I want to extend a big thank you to all our listeners for tuning in. Your support truly means the world. If you found value in today's conversation, please consider sharing this podcast with a friend or leaving us a review. It helps more people discover these stories and insights. I'm Mike Ivashu, signing off for now. Stay curious, stay resilient, and I'll catch you in the next episode.